Hey everybody, it's Matt. Welcome back to the Journey Church podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can automatically get our weekly episodes. And you might want to go ahead and subscribe to our Journey YouTube channel as well. You'll find messages, music, interviews, inspiring stories, and more for you all right there. Now, I hope this episode helps you take your next step in following Jesus.
We're in this series called Losing Connection. So let's start with this really difficult question. Who would you call if life got tough, like really tough? I know life in general is tough, but who would you call on if life got really so tough that you just weren't sure what to do? You know, you thought the marriage was safe and then things happened and you're like, man, this is not working. Or, man, you thought your health was fine, but you went to the doctor and they found it. And then you're like, what? I don't know what to do with this new thing that is being called by the doctors something I don't understand, and I don't even know, what do you do then? Or financially, maybe work has been going great, but man, this new economy, these things, it's just not going like it used to. And man, the amount you're used to bringing in is just not happening. And man, you feel the pressure of that. Or maybe just in general, like a fire happens or a car accident or something just unexpected hits you. Who is it that you're calling on? Because if you're like a normal person, if you're like me, I guess I'm normal. I don't know. But I'm thinking, who do I call? I pull up my phone, and we all know in that moment, gosh, I shouldn't do this alone. Right? We all get the sense that like there should be somebody here to help me through all this. So I sit down on my phone, and I look through, and if I don't find anybody, that's devastating. Like to be facing a crisis in your life, but to not know who to call. Or even worse, you call some people, but they don't show up like you thought they would. And then you're stuck. You feel abandoned. You feel left alone. You feel isolated from what's going on. And not only you're carrying the weight of what's this new crisis that's going on in your world, now you've got this new weight of just being like, oh my goodness, I have to do this because nobody's here for me. If you've ever felt like that, maybe some of you are in that situation right now. Let me tell you some good news. Jesus knows exactly what that feels like. Jesus experienced being abandoned, betrayed, and alone. And it's so good for us to know that we are not alone in that, right? And Jesus' story is simply this. We're about to celebrate Easter, but the week leading up to Easter, Jesus experienced moment after moment of his disciples just not his friends, his people he had built for 3 years just not being there for him. In fact, they were more worried about who was going to be sitting in his right hand when he took over. And they were asking him questions like that. But what they weren't asking was in his last moments, well, Jesus, how can I pray for you? Because you seem to be praying in this garden, so they have a meal together. And Jesus tells them his death is coming. And he asks a few of them to go pray, and they go to the garden and pray, and they can't even stay awake praying with him. I mean, I'm not all for hours and hours long of prayer, but if my friend is in great need and feels like his death is impending, I want to try to at least stay awake. His friends can't even stay awake. And then in the next few hours, he's arrested. And I don't know what they would have done. It's not like they're fighters or anything. And even Jesus kind of like calmed them down. They try to do a little bit. But they take him off to trial with the community leaders, the Jewish leaders who had set all this up through the Roman government. Remember, the Jews at that time were ruled over by the Romans, and so they didn't really have control of their own city, but the Jewish community leaders, the religious leaders of the day, they have a trial with Jesus, and they have people come in this trial, and Peter goes to stand in the courtyard outside the trial, but Peter acts like he doesn't even know Jesus. They're like, hey, do you know Jesus? I'm like, no, I don't know him. And nobody shows up to like defend his case in front of the community leaders. And then the community leaders, they can't give the death penalty even though they think Jesus should die for what he's done, and he's tried to make himself equal with God. So they're like, we need to give this guy the death penalty, but we have to send him to Pontius Pilate, who is the governor, the Roman governor, and he can decide whether he deserves death. And Pilate brings Jesus before a whole crowd of people because at this time of year is Passover. And the Romans deciding it would be a good idea every year at Passover, since the Jewish, they had this religious festival, maybe they should release one prisoner every year. And they had Jesus and this other guy up on and saying, which one do you want? Do you want Barabbas or do you want Jesus? And the whole crowd, led on by the Jewish leaders, crucify Jesus, crucify him, take him, take him. We want Barabbas, release him. And his friends didn't come with a counter rally. So alone, abandoned, betrayed. So listen, if you're feeling that way, if you've ever felt that way, the good news is Jesus gets you. Like he gets it. In that moment, he knows exactly what it is to feel alone. Let me tell you why this is so important. We started this series last week, Losing Connection. Americans are experiencing historically unprecedented feelings of isolation, invisible, insignificance, and just knowing that culturally across the board, right? We're in this kind of cultural season of just people feeling like they should do life alone, or maybe not they should do life alone, but they can't figure out how to do it with other people well, or they feel isolated. Maybe they have people, but they don't feel like they have people. Whatever it is, let me show you some of the stats I started with last week, so those of you who weren't here last week can catch up, and those of you who were here last week, you don't remember these anyway, so we'll just all do it together. So 20% more time at home is spent by adults. We're spending adults more time alone than 50 years ago. Like our calendars have just changed. We spend less time with other people. We just spend time alone, right? That's kind of sad. Gen Y and Gen Z. I got called out this morning by somebody. I was like, what's Gen Y? I'm like, Gen Y is what they call the generation below me. I'm X, they're Y, and Z's the teens and 20s, okay? So just so you know, you like the term millenniums, you're a GY to me, okay? All right, so Gen Y and Z spend 70% less time with their friends than my generation did 20 years ago. So they're spending less time with friends. That's a lot of time to spending doing other things and not with the friends that make you feel like you belong. And then the last one is right now, Americans, only 39% of people would say they feel very connected. This is what I'm talking about when I say we feel isolated, invisible, and insignificant. Like there's just a general sense in our communities right now that it's not like it once was. The connections aren't there. So here's where we landed last week. Without meaningful connection, life will end up in chaos. Not that you're trying to, not that anybody wants your life to be chaotic, but this is what happens when people aren't around you to help you figure things out, to encourage you to do the hard things that may not be the easy things, but they're the best things and they're hard. Those people, if they're not there, you will end up choosing what is easy, which often produces chaos in your life. And so to avoid chaos, we said last week that God created us as beings who need each other. We're human beings and we need community, we need friendships, we need closeness because that is the order he brings to our lives. To defeat the chaos, he brought this, and community is how you order your life. So listen, let's just make this real and upfront for you. So if let's say you're a student, teenagers, college students, life is hard work, right? It's already hard, it's already heavy. Like that bucket's got some weight in it. Let's see if I can show you. It's got some weight to it, right? Life is already hard. But let's just say, you're already working to help pay for school debt and you don't want that much school debt, or maybe you're already working on the side to make sure you can pay your insurance for your car because your parents are like, hey, you're kind of old enough to do that now. And there's just some adult things for you students, right? Feels heavy. But then let's just say the breakup comes. Man, you've been dating for 2 years and you really thought that was the person. And then mom gets sick and you're worried about her at home, but you're here in school and you're doing the things that you're supposed to do, but what am I supposed to do about that? And then, man, financially, the job isn't bringing in what I need to have. I'm going to have to find a new job, a different job. And man, the job I thought was going to be lined up with what I'm studying, man, and it just gets heavier and heavier. And then you realize you've got to move to a new city in the midst of all that. It just gets really heavy. For those of you who are out of school, maybe it's with your kids. Like life is already hard, but you add in a kid getting really sick or a car breaking down at the wrong time. And financially, you're like, I'm hit. I'm right here. That's it. I can't handle another crisis. But you really don't know what's coming around the bend. And here's what we just all feel like we're doing. We're all alone. We just think that we can carry all that load ourselves. But it breaks us, doesn't it? Life can break you when you try to carry the weight of the world yourself. Here's what, if you're feeling that today, or even if you're not, you know it's coming. There's going to be something that's going to happen that's going to be too heavy for you to carry alone. And here's what I know about everybody in the room. You would like to have the people around you, but are you being intentional about building the people around you need to carry the load of life that's coming or that's here? Are you developing those kinds of relationships? But here's the good news. Listen, if you don't have those, if you feel alone, isolated, insignificant, if you feel like I don't have the kind of connections I need, that's what today's about. To helping you take a step to do that. Because maybe you could start now so that the next crisis, you're not on your own, because you were never meant to carry this alone. None of this, no people, nobody in the room, no person in this room is strong enough to face the weight of life all by themselves. I know some of you are like, yeah, but I've been doing a really good job so far. Yeah, but have you? Like, we just weren't meant to do that. You're not strong enough to do this alone. So how do we do this together? Well, here's what we're going to talk about. I want to show you some wisdom. Last week we looked at Genesis and the start of the story. I want to jump into the middle, and I want to show you some wisdom from a guy who wrote a book called Ecclesiastes. I doubt very many of you have opened up your Bible and been like, oh yeah, Ecclesiastes, that's the one I'm looking at. It's hard to even spell or say, right? But I want to show you some wisdom that's going to help you if you're feeling like isolated, abandoned, or alone. This is going to help you understand why this is so important and why you should take some steps to move toward the kinds of healthy relationships that help you carry the load. You ready? Let's look at Ecclesiastes chapter 4. This verse says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. This is not rocket science. Every time I think about this verse, I think about a ridiculous chore my dad made me do when I was growing up. I still to this day, Dad, if you're watching, which he will, Dad, this is ridiculous. I don't understand it. I don't know why you made us do this. I mean, I get the principle. Like, you're supposed to get the leaves away from the house. Like, letting wet leaves lay up around the house, I get it. You don't want snakes and critters and being up next to your house. Like, that's cool. Let's get those away. But why do we need to push it all up on a big piece of plastic and drag that piece of plastic thousands of yards that way to dump away from the house? There's got to be a more efficient way to do that, Dad. It's called mowing them up. Mulching is good for your yard, Dad. Right? Let me tell you why I think about this every time, because when I thought about doing this chore, there was no efficient way to do it alone. I mean, I tried to do it alone sometimes. I have younger brothers, but sometimes you go out there as the older brother because you are more responsible and you're stronger and you're just better in every way, that you think you can do things that you shouldn't do alone. And you get out there raking, and you're raking it up on this piece of plastic, and you gather up the one end of the plastic, you pull both corners together, and then you realize those corners are apart. It'll be all right. And you start dragging it, and you halfway there, all the leaves are already out. Right? And it doesn't work. A good return for your labor is asking your younger brother, who is capable of not pulling the weight, but can hold the ends together to keep all the leaves from getting out the back end. He can do that. 2 is always better than 1 with leaves. You guys get this, right? It's obvious. You guys ever had to move something, a big pile of something? It's not just that it's easier work and it's faster work. It's that it makes you feel better doing it with somebody. Have you ever had I get some of you like to work on your car alone. You like to work on your stuff alone. I get that. You introverts who like to just do things alone, I get it. That's hobby stuff, though. Think about a job that's so big, you actually can't do it alone. Or if you can, it's going to take this much time. Doesn't it make you frustrated when you think about moving those bricks to over there? And you're like, I got to move those bricks over there. And then you start doing it, you're like, this is taking forever. I hate moving bricks. But you get the right friend or two to help you move bricks, and suddenly bricks becomes a fun thing to do. Not only are you having fun doing it, it's going faster, but you start to realize, you weren't made for carrying your bricks, but your friend is really good at loading a wheelbarrow just right to fit the most in it, and that's weighted correctly so that when you carry it, it doesn't feel like it. And you're like, man, I never thought about stacking it that way. And you start to think, maybe God made us different for a purpose. He's there to stack the bricks, and I'm there to move the wheelbarrow. This is what 2 better than 1 means, I think. It's not just that the work is easier. It's not just that more work is done. It's that God has gifted you in a certain way, and you work alongside somebody else who is gifted in a certain way. And when you come together and you work together, the good return is that you have a meaning and a purpose that is more than you thought possible because you just didn't know that somebody else had those skills. Guys, if it weren't for my wife, I would be dirt poor. I would have no money. And it's not because I don't understand the importance of money or the bills that we pay. I know how much we pay and I know how much it costs. And I know all those things because I don't have the natural discipline to keep track of where it's going, guys. It is a pain to look in the checkbook and be like, yes, write that down. Yes, write that down. That annoys me. I can't stand it. You know what my wife is really good at? Doing that. And it's no problem for her. You know what she has problems with? Having any kind of fun. I'll be honest with you. If it weren't for me, that girl would sit and knit. And I don't get it. So listen, between us, we have fun and money. Because it works, right? Listen, this is the way God built us all to be together. Your purpose and meaning shoots to the top when you start working along with other people and have them as a part of your life. 2 is not only better than 1 because it's faster, it's more fun, and your purpose and meaning hits a brand new level, and you start to realize when you're in a community of people who are all gifted differently and we're able to accomplish something together, gosh, doesn't that feel great? That's the way it's supposed to. That's the way God designed it to work. So will life throw a punch at you and hit you in the chin every once in a while? Yes. That's why the writer of Ecclesiastes says this next. He says, if either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Gosh, you guys get this, right? But this is what it's designed to do. When you don't have anybody to pick you up, you really are having to think about all the weight you're carrying by yourself and figure out where am I going to get the energy to not only do this, but also get back up because life just threw a punch and I can't take many more of those. But here's what I know about life. You don't know how many of those punches are going to come in a row. And you might be able to take the one, but man, you get back up. And the second one, that's going to hurt really bad. So when the wisdom of this comes to bear, you start thinking, I can't do life alone. Listen, and it's not that you can't take the punch and keep going. It's that you can't take the punch alone and keep going. That's the point of this. Yes, of course, the circumstance in front of you is huge and it's terrible and it's difficult and it's a challenge. And the weight of that is on your shoulders. But doing it with someone means that you have the strength to carry it. It means that you have someone to help pick you up and remind you how important it is to keep doing that. How important that is. Yes, I know. Let me help you carry that. Let me come alongside you and encourage you and be there with you in the midst of it. That's what it looks like. And then he wraps up our little section with this great piece of wisdom. Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. And a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Guys, the weight of life is not yours to carry alone. And I know what some of you are thinking. I just don't want to admit that I need help. If I admit I need help, then it says I'm not strong enough. Or I'm just not sure I'm ready to talk about that thing in my life that I need help with. I'm not sure I'm ready to ask for help from anybody. I'm not sure I can trust anybody with it. I get it. But let's go back to the weight you're carrying. And alone, it broke you. But 3... And 3 is so strong when you think about it. I mean, 3 can hold on to a lot of weight, and it really doesn't put that much pressure on them. Do you have that in your life? Because that's what it looks like to have a community of people who help you do the hard life. You are not designed to do this alone. And you don't have to. And if you've been trying, let me just plead with you to say that the most difficult thing that you have going for you right now is not that the circumstances are hard, it's that you haven't asked anybody to do it with you. See, the most important thing some of you will do this year is to actually start focusing on these kinds of friendships and these kinds of healthy relationships so that when something does hit, because here's what I know, everybody's going to hit it. You have people around you to help you carry it. And this is why when Jesus came on the scene, I talked about this last week, when Jesus comes on the scene and he starts talking about what it is he's doing, he talks about it in the terms of a family. He tells his disciples, hey, you need to pray to God your Father. He's like a father to you. He's close and he cares for you and he loves you. So pray to him, say, Heavenly Father. And then he started calling them his brothers and sisters, the people, anybody that followed him and started believing in him and trusting him and doing life his way, he started calling brothers and sisters. No matter what they had done or where they'd been or what their life looked like before, if they were Jewish or not, they came in and Jesus was like, brother and sister, welcome in. Welcome to the family. Because this is what we're building here. We're building a group of people who support each other because this life is hard and we're going to be here for each other. And that's why he challenged us. Listen, for those of us who are followers of Jesus, he challenged us to love in a different way. And that's why after he's gone, he's left the earth and he's resurrected, he's gone back to the Father in heaven. Paul writes to the church in Galatia, he writes this single phrase that I think is so good for us to hear as the church. Those of us who are Christ followers, listen, here's what we're to be doing. In Galatians 6, he says, carry each other's burdens. And in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. And the law of Christ is simple. It's the way we love people like he loves us. Jesus comes alongside every one of us and helps us carry our burdens. In fact, he showed us that love sees. Love sees when hurt's happening. Love looks at it and sees it and doesn't run away from the hurt that they see. And love shows up in the midst of that. Love shows up in however it can. I can't solve this issue for you. I don't have the power to do this, but I'm showing up with you, and I'm just going to be standing here with you in the middle of it as long as it takes. And love will stand and defend somebody who needs defending. And love will serve that person well for the good that's in the future. And love will even go so far as to sacrifice for the person. So listen, for those of you in the room who are experiencing this, I just want you to know that part of what Jesus was trying to do is create a culture of people. He called it the church, the gathering of people. Those of us who are followers of Jesus, this is what we're supposed to create as a community. This is why when we talk about our church being for the community, it's not just for them, in fact, like some ethereal sense, like theoretically we're out there being for them. No, we're being for them because they don't realize they don't have to do life alone. That when Jesus came, yes, he established a way for our own individual sin to be carried away and for us to have a connection with our Heavenly Father and to restore and redeem that relationship. Yes, that all happened. But he also redeemed our community so that we can bring together a group of people who would love each other so well that no one would carry a burden alone. That's what I want for all of us in this room. So let me ask you the hardest question of the day. Do you have the friends who show up when life gets messed up? Do you have some 2 a.m. friends? Do you have some people that if it all goes awry and at 2 a.m. you wake up worrying about it and depressed about it and you're not sure what to do, you have somebody or a couple people to call on and text? And I'll just be honest with you. I was talking to somebody after the first service and I hadn't even thought about this, but I actually have intentionally, I have some family members on my do not disturb list, which they can break through my phone at any time of the night. If they need me, I'm going to come running. But I've actually got another set of people around that I've got on my list that they can call me any time of the night and I'm available. Do you have that? Do you have some people who can break through to do not disturb on your phone and get a hold of you at the moment's notice? And do you have those people you can call? Because we all need those people. The flip side of that is, like I said, are you that kind of friend for a few people? I realize, listen, we can't be that kind of friend for everybody we connect with. That's not possible. But Jesus, if you're a Christ follower, if you're not a Christ follower, this is not for you. But listen, Jesus called us each to love this way. And not in a general sense. Because see, Jesus didn't come in a general sense to die for you. No, he literally came and died for you. And your example is that. Jesus followers, is there anybody out there that you're going the extra mile for? Do you have some people you're investing in because you want to give them and help them carry the burdens they have and you're helping take in that load as best you can, as best you know how? Listen, some of you in the room, you may need to send an apology text because you've got those friends, but you haven't been paying attention real well, and you need to say you're sorry. Hey, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you last month. And I just want you to know I'm recommitting to this friendship that I'll be there. If you need me, I'm here. Let me know what I can do. And some of you may need to have a conversation with some good friends that they're good friends, but they're not those kinds of friends. And you need to go there and have a conversation and look at them and be like, hey, listen, you're one of the people I really depend on. I want you to know I'm here for you too. Can we have this conversation about how that looks? Because I want you to know that I'm depending on you if something goes down. Maybe you need to have that one. But here's what I know for sure. Everybody in the room needs that. In our culture, we talked about this last week, but just remember, most of our connections are not that level, are they? They're practical, they're functional, they're transactional, which is all good. Listen, that's good that's efficient. Like it's good to have those kinds of connections across the board. I get it. But it's not sufficient to carry you forward. It's not going to help you carry any burdens. And here's what I know about some of those friends that are in that category. They could be these other kind of friends, but we're not all thinking that way. We're only thinking about how busy our calendars are and where our kids need to be this weekend or what work's calling for or what, man, this has got to be done. And all this stuff takes up our calendar, but we never think about the fact that we're actually building right now with our time the kinds of relationship we'll take to face the next crisis. So here's what I'm going to throw on your board, and this is the hard part. This is the hardest thing I'm going to tell you today. To have these kinds of friendships, to kind of have healthy relationships, there's a cost to that. Healthy relationships come with a cost. You know what the cost is? You'll have to be vulnerable about what you really need help with. And you'll have to be willing at some point to have a person you trust enough to look at them and say, I need help. And that's the cost. And you'll have to change your calendar up because you'll have to put some time in with these people because you guys all get this. Great friends like this don't happen by accident. You don't just fall into a relationship and be like, yeah, man, he'll be there for whenever I need him. No, relationships start weird. You start doing some things together, or maybe you start serving at church together, or you meet, do this, and blah, 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 and you go to dinner a few times, and then you do this one more time, and then you start doing more stuff together, and you spend regular, intentional, consistent time with those same people, enough so that you're willing to admit to them, like, I just want you to know, I'm really struggling with what's going on with my mom. And that's a new place to go with some people, isn't it? Because you've never really crossed that barrier. All you've really talked about is just like, yeah, you can talk general frustrations, but man, to go that far, that's tough. But let me tell you what this is. You will never regret that kind of investment in people. You know why? Because that kind of investment means that they'll be there with you when it really gets tough. And you'll be there for them. And then there's a shared weight carrying. You are carrying each other's burdens, and nobody's burden feels unmanageable. That's the kind of investment you'll have to make. It may change your calendar. So listen, I gave you some challenges last week. I'm going to give you some same sort of challenges this week. Starter pack, if you don't really have those kind of people, extrovert 101, you ready? I'm an extrovert. I'm going to assume most everybody in the room is an introvert. To me, all of you are introverts, okay? Everybody in the room, nobody's as extrovert. There might be one person over in here. Yeah, there you go. One person. So it said there's one person. Listen, here's 101. You don't have the first time you meet somebody to drop into a heavy conversation. That's not what this is about. But you do have to meet somebody. So here we go. Guys in the room, if you need these relationships, and listen, if you show up this afternoon, I'm not going to assume you're just a lonely guy, okay? I need help, so you need to show up to help me. But this afternoon, from 3 to 5, we are packing. I found out it's not 1,400 this year. It's 1,260 some odd bags we got to pack for local schools. I need help. Guys, this would be a great chance for you just to rub shoulders with some other men in our church and see them, introduce them face to face, and out of your introvert box go, hey, my name is, and meet them. I can't guarantee you a friend today. I can guarantee you some hard work and some people to do it with. And you can take it from there, okay? Number 2, I told you last week you should pick up your phone and you should dial right in the service. You guys got to use your phone last week in the service and text somebody. Hopefully you did that. If you didn't, try it out this week. Go back to lesson 1. Lesson 2 this week is this. Maybe you did that. Good job. You know what you need to do now? Establish a regular, consistent rhythm. The challenge this week is this. That person you met with or those few people that you want to try to meet with, have you got an intentional, consistent rhythm to see them on a regular basis so you can share life together? If you do not, the challenge is this week to try it. How can I help with that? Here's how I can help. Serve Now is next Sunday morning during the first service. Listen, I can't guarantee you friendships, but here's what I can guarantee you in Serve Now. You'll get to see some other people in our church who are wanting to serve other people well. And like most of the people who serve in our church, you will find out that there's other people here that you actually fit well with on a team because you have this gift and they have this gift, and you start serving together and meaning and purpose goes up. And leaves don't fall out the back of the plastic. Try Serve Now. I promise you, you at least get a chance to meet some people and be a part of that community. Do what's next if you're not ready for that. That's also next week during the second service. If you're just wanting to see what this is about and you have more questions, that's what's next is for. And then, lastly, let me challenge you this. Let's say you do all those things. You start developing a regular rhythm. Here's what you got to do. You got to realize that your investment in those people is not just about your health. It's about theirs. There's some people out there who need you. And you're their answer to prayer. And there are lonely people beside you that you need to go and be there for. So it's not just about helping you feel connected. It's about you stepping into a world where you're willing to be like Jesus. see it, show up, serve, stand up for those people, sacrifice those people, and love the way he called us to love so that we can be a community that nobody this year carries any burden alone. Let me pray for us. God, thank you for being a father who's been close, who came close to us, Jesus close to us, onto this earth to be one of us. God, thank you for that truth. Thank you for his sacrifice of his life. Thank you for raising him back so that he could come back and show us what this community thing was supposed to look like, that we connected together, live better. We carry each other's burdens. We thrive when we have a community of people around us who love us well. So God, help us to be those kind of people. Help us to choose the hard things this week. Sometimes these simple things seem so hard, God, to cross the barriers of friendships. But God, help us to do the hard things, to commit it, to do the cost, because we know in the long run, you are building a community of people. It's going to help us thrive no matter what hits us. And I ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, if you'd like more content like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel and download our Journey app to access all of our recent message content. And our app is the easiest way to share this content with a friend. For more information on our church or to find our app or our YouTube channel, just visit journeycalway.com. That's journeycalway.com. Thanks for listening.